Every moral teacher or spiritual advisor gives injunctions about how to live wisely and well. But life is so complicated and full of uncertainty that rules seldom tell us quite what to do. The word revolution first brings to mind violent upheavals in the state, but ideas of revolution in science and of political revolution are almost coeval. The word once meant only a revolving, a circular return to an origin, as when we speak of revolutions per minute or the revolution of the planets about the sun. I had this extraordinary curiosity about all subjects of the natural and human world and the interaction between the physical sciences and the social sciences. The social risks that worry us are not a random bundle of frights. All peoples have evolved extraordinarily precise ways of settling issues about the things that matter to them. A philosophical dictionary is not a dictionary of philosophy that you use to look up obscure thinkers or recondite terms. It is a collection of brief and pithy essays on diverse topics, informed by one vision, and usually arranged in alphabetical order. Molecular biology has routinely taken problematic things under its wing without altering core ideas. The walking wounded, impaired in life and dissected in death, were our primary clues to where and how parts of the brain work. If you were just intent on killing people, you could do better with a bomb made of agricultural fertilizer. Every once in a while, something happens to you that makes you realize that the human race is not quite as bad as it so often seems to be. The debate about who decides what gets taught is fascinating, albeit excruciating for those who have to defend the schools against bunkum. If you are a researcher and want to publish a paper, if you are applying for money either from a private or public foundation, you have to have a DSM code. The public debate about evolution itself, as opposed to whether to teach it, is something else. It is boring, demeaning, and insufferably dull. Many of us will be obsessed with one or another kind of secret or revelation, be it gossip about friends or ourselves, a fantasy about spies, or a worry about the most personal information now stored in databanks. But few of us think about secrets in general, or about the moral rights and wrongs of hiding or exposing them. Cutting up fowl to predict the future is, if done honestly and with as little interpretation as possible, a kind of randomization, but chicken guts are hard to read and invite flights of fancy or corruption. I think it's unfortunate when people say that there is just one true story of science. For one thing, there are many different sciences, and historians will tell different stories corresponding to different things. I'm a dilettante. My governing word is curiosity. In every generation, there are quite firm rules on how to behave when you are crazy. What are the relationships between power and knowledge? There are two bad, short answers. 1. Knowledge provides an instrument that those in power can wield for their own ends. 2. A new body of knowledge brings into being a new class of people or institutions that can exercise a new kind of power. Foucault is one of many who want a new conception of how power and knowledge interact. But he is not looking for a relation between two givens, power and knowledge. As always, he is trying to rethink the entire subject matter, and his knowledge and power are to be something else, One ought to begin an analysis of power from the ground up, at the level of tiny local events where battles are unwittingly enacted by players who don't know what they are doing. Foucault's genius is to go down to the little dramas, dress them in facts hardly anyone else has noticed, and turn these stage settings into clues to a hitherto unthought series of confrontations out of which, he contends, the orderly structure of society is composed. Dolomite is a whole mess of stuff, a mixture. It gets characterized as a stuff because of the interest of oil geologists. It would have been a nonentity were it not for its applications. Great books are rare. One of Kuhn's marvelous legacies is science studies as we know it today. Kuhn was the intellectual of whom many scientists said he's telling it as it is insofar as talking about a process of tinkering in terms of theory and experiment followed by radical changes. But often, what Kuhn had in mind were some very spectacular incidents in the history of the sciences that changed our way of looking at the world. The stability of what's called the standard model of particle physics and its ability to make so many clever predictions with immense precision suggests that we may just be stuck with it, and there may never be an overthrow of that. One of the things Kuhn said about normal science is that people expect things to be discovered. Each of us becomes a new person as we redescribe the past. The anti-Darwin movement has racked up one astounding achievement. It has made a significant proportion of American parents care about what their children are taught in school. Unfortunately, anti-Darwinism keeps playing minor variations on the same negative themes and adds nothing to our understanding of life. Some people say they use images to help them remember intricacies. Others say they just remember. If they are able to form an image of the face, it is because they remember how it was. It is not that an image guides memory, but that memory produces an image, or the sense of imaging. We have no agreed way to talk clearly about such things. We do not need to have a way to talk clearly about other people's images. Antonio Damasio is a distinguished neuroscientist with a flair for writing about science and an enthusiasm for philosophizing. Brain science will be the most popular science of the early 21st century. Emotions come first, and in the most direct sense, you first have an emotion and then have a feeling, but also first in the history of the human race, for the ability to have emotions long preceded the ability to have feelings. Life on a factory farm is well nigh unbearable for the animals or birds, and it is often foul for the women and men who process the meat that results, especially in factories for chicken parts. But do not sentimentalize. Do not imagine barnyard life is a bowl of cherries. Amartya Sen is best known to the general reader for his powerful essays on famine. He is an optimist about some of our gravest economic problems, such as mass starvation in a world that at present can easily produce more food than everyone can eat. Reason and voluntary participation are his watchwords. Among the lesser effects of quantum theory are gaping holes in old ideas about causality. Secrecy is one of the shadier sides of private and public life. Although some secrecy is odious, some is essential just to preserve our sense of self. As a political metaphor, A revolution could, in that sense, mean only a return to better times, or to the true constitution, a ridding of excess or usurpers. It is possible to argue that our present conception of revolution was staked out more securely in science than in political action. Despite a certain amount of rhetoric, such as the Second American Revolution, there is a fair consensus about which events in the affairs of a people can rightly be called revolutions. It is also clear that such revolutions are proper objects of study for the historian. It is so hard to make important decisions that we have a great urge to reduce them to rules. Kant taught us that we should follow just those rules of conduct that we would want everybody to follow. Few find this generalization of the Golden Rule a great help. Philip Kitcher thinks that mathematics is surprisingly like empirical science. Few mathematicians would agree. Philosophers too, from Socrates on, have held the opposite opinion. Risk analysis can cater to any sort of hazard, but their profession owes its existence to a relatively narrow band of possible dangers. It is a general truth that students of language in every era try to colonize some or all of the other human sciences.